On a stormy night, when the forest was drowning in rain and thunder shook the sky, a stray mother dog made a choice that defied nature itself. She heard faint cries buried under the mud, and when she dug through the earth, she pulled out a fragile creature clinging to life. But it wasn't a puppy, it was a leopard cub. Instead of leaving him, she carried him home, fed him with her milk, and raised him alongside her own. No one believed their bond would last, but years later, when the cub had grown into a powerful predator, he returned. What he did then didn't just shock everyone who witnessed it. It touched hearts across the world. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The night was alive with thunder. Lightning slashed across the sky, tearing open the clouds as rain poured endlessly over the dense forest. Most animals hid in burrows or under trees, but one small figure moved through the storm. A stray black dog, drenched to the bone, searching desperately for shelter. Her paws sank into mud. Her breath came out in sharp clouds of mist, yet something kept driving her forward. The faintest sound, almost drowned by the rain. At first, she thought it was the wind. But then she heard it again, a whimper, soft and desperate, coming from a collapsed mound of earth near an old den. Instinct took over. Ignoring the cold and the pain, she began to dig, her claws slicing through wet soil until she uncovered a tiny, trembling creature. When she pulled it free, her eyes widened. It wasn't a puppy, covered in spots and barely breathing. It was a leopard cub, fragile, freezing, and alone. She sniffed him once, then gently picked him up by the scruff of his neck. Without hesitation, she turned back toward the faint lights of the village. That night, a stray dog carried home a miracle. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the village soaked in silver mist. When the rescue volunteers at the animal shelter opened their doors, they froze at the sight before them. The black dog stood there, shivering and muddy, her eyes wide and pleading. In her mouth, she held something small, a leopard cub. She laid him gently on a blanket, then curled around him protectively, as though afraid someone might take him away. The staff rushed forward, stunned. The cub was cold and weak, but alive. As they dried him off and placed him near a heat lamp, the dog never moved from his side. When they brought her own puppies to nurse, she made room for the cub without hesitation. It was as if she didn't see spots or stripes, only a helpless child who needed love. Days passed, and the shelter workers couldn't believe what they were witnessing. The leopard cub nuzzled against the mother dog's belly, feeding alongside her pups. She licked his fur, cleaned his ears, and even scolded him gently when he played too rough. No one had taught her to care for a predator, yet somehow, she knew exactly what to do. The bond was real, and it was growing stronger with each sunrise. Days turned into weeks, and the shelter transformed into a place of wonder. The leopard cub, once frail and frightened, now tumbled across the floor with unsteady steps, chasing his adopted siblings through blankets and toys. The mother dog watched with gentle eyes, always ready to nudge him back when he strayed too far. To her, there was no difference. They were all her children. The volunteers often paused in their work to watch the strange little family. A predator and his prey, bound not by blood, but by love. The cub slept nestled against her chest every night, his tiny spotted paw resting on her fur. When she left to drink water, he would whimper until she returned. Their connection was undeniable, pure, maternal, and unexplainable, but deep down, everyone knew this harmony couldn't last forever. The leopard was growing quickly, his claws sharpening, his instincts stirring. Wildlife officials had already begun to visit, observing quietly, their faces heavy with unspoken truth. One day soon, he would have to go back to the wild, to his own kind. Still, no one could bear to think of separating them. Every time the cub looked up at his adoptive mother with those trusting eyes, it felt impossible to imagine him anywhere else. The morning came too soon. The sun rose quietly over the shelter as a jeep pulled up near the gate. Wildlife officers stepped out, carrying a small transport crate lined with straw. The mother dog sensed something was wrong before anyone spoke. Her ears perked, her tail lowered, and she stood protectively in front of the leopard cub, who watched the men curiously. The volunteers tried to comfort her, but she wouldn't move. She barked, low and uncertain, her eyes darting between the cub and the officers. When they finally lifted him gently into the crate, the dog whimpered, a soft, broken sound that silenced everyone. The cub pressed his face against the bars, letting out small cries. Confused and frightened as the Jeep rolled forward, the dog ran after it, her paws kicking up clouds of dust. Her cries echoed down the dirt road, growing fainter until they disappeared completely. The cub's spotted face remained at the window, his eyes wide with sorrow, watching the only mother he had ever known fade into the distance. Back at the shelter, silence hung heavy. The mother dog lay beside the empty blanket where the cub once slept, nose pressed into its folds. She didn't eat that night. For the first time, the shelter felt unbearably quiet. Years slipped quietly by. The shelter continued its work, rescuing animals in need, but the story of the mother dog and her unlikely cub became a whispered legend among the volunteers. The dog herself grew older, her muzzle now silver, her steps slower. Yet sometimes, she still wandered to the edge of the shelter fence at night, gazing out toward the forest as though waiting for something. One evening, the waiting ended. A low, guttural growl echoed from the tree line, deep and powerful enough to send shivers through the staff. Workers rushed outside, flashlights cutting through the darkness. What they saw froze them in place. The fully grown leopard stood at the edge of the fence, his golden eyes glinting under the moonlight. Fear gripped the crowd until the mother dog stepped forward. Tail wagging slowly, she walked toward the fence without hesitation. The leopard lowered his massive head and let out a soft rumble, not of threat, but of recognition. He pressed his face against the fence as she reached him, her nose brushing his fur through the bars. The staff gasped, realizing the impossible truth. He had not forgotten her. After all these years, he had come home. For a moment, no one at the shelter dared to move. The leopard stayed by the fence, his massive frame glowing in the moonlight. Yet his eyes softened the instant they met the dogs. Slowly, carefully, the gate was opened, and to everyone's shock, he stepped inside without aggression. The mother dog wagged her tail, her old legs trembling, and pressed her head against his chest. The big cat lowered himself, nuzzling her gently, like a child greeting his mother after a long journey. The staff stood in silence, some wiping tears from their eyes. This wasn't instinct. This wasn't coincidence. It was love, unshakable, unforgettable. The leopard curled beside her on the ground, his spotted flank pressed against her frail body. Under the pale glow of the moon, predator and guardian lay side by side, a living testament to a bond that had defied nature itself. For hours, he stayed there, rumbling softly as she drifted into peaceful rest. It was as if he had returned only to let her know she was never forgotten, that the life she had saved had carried her love deep into the wild. She hadn't just rescued a cub that stormy night. She had created a family where none should have existed. And years later, he came back to say thank you.